Yo, 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 what's good, YouTube? What's good? We are back. This is Stormybman welcoming you to Stormybman Live. We got our brother Art Hostage in the building as well. As we continue on with today's live stream, we got about 40 minutes that we can cook before the brother KQKC comes on with his show on the next hour. So, Art, thank you for joining me, man. And we can keep things going a little bit with some of the conversation that we initially started on Drew Titan's channel. It's great to be able to have people come out and support us like they're doing. I'll start off with a bit of a roll call. I had thought I had went live when I hadn't hit the live button yet, so I was so anxious to get going. But we got Simon Bridgman out there saying salute Stormy B, man. Stephen L. the Mac out there with that super chat saying, I'm already here, Sensei. Appreciate you. We got Vince Vilborn out there. Showers out there. Salute to you all. Joe the Beast, JC, Antonio MMA, Black Alpha. We got F Fury out there. And we got Tay Tay out there. Everybody coming in. That's great to see you guys coming out to show that support, man. That's what it's all about. So, all right, I wanted to ask you another question. You know, I had some pretty good questions for you this morning. And to continue on with that, I wanted to ask you, when do you think we should start seeing some of the things that we've been discussing kind of take root and start seeing some people, you know, stumble as a result of what's been going on? Because it seemingly has gotten so out of control that the deck has to collapse sooner or later, but it may not collapse all at once, but we may be seeing the beginning of things coming apart. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what I would say, Stormy B, would be that the trigger will be when the Kinahans are taken into custody. Then you will see a snowball effect and a domino effect. That is the key trigger point which we are waiting for. Now, you've got to remember, in Dublin at the moment, there's a trial going on with regards to the Regency Hotel shooting at the weigh-in, and the other most famous gangster in Ireland called Jerry the Monk Hutch is on trial for murder of David Byrne when they tried to kill Daniel Kinahan, and that trial is expected to last for the next 10 weeks. So I would assume that they won't be lifting the Kinahans until after the Jerry the Monk Hutch trial in Dublin. I may be wrong, because there's a school of thought thinking it's November, and certain people were saying back in April it may take until the end of this year to take them into custody. But if you want to see when the trigger point will be, which will then cause the domino effect throughout boxing and everything being sort of made public, because I've got it on good authority that the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, right, they are case against the Kinahan cartel and everyone associated is signed, sealed and ready to be delivered, and the key to it is taking the Kinahans into custody.
Interesting. Do you think that the big fight that was scheduled in September between Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields, I know that the Queen passed away and everything, and so the fight was postponed and rescheduled for 5 weeks later. Do you think that situation worked out positively for Clarissa, or do you think things just ran the way they would have gone? Because, you know, some of us in the community, we have some concerns.
Yes, me included.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I would rather focus on the sterling role model behaviour of Clarissa Shields, because she did something before the Savannah Marshall fight that we haven't focused on and we should be. She produced her VADA drug test results leading up to the fight to prove that she is clean. And for me, that is a precedent. I think that all fighters should produce their VADA drug test leading up to every single fight, and they should produce them on the weigh-in day before the fight, so that all the public know that the fighters have certainly been clean leading up to the actual fight. That, for me, was probably the biggest takeaway from that. The way that Clarissa Shields carried herself off when she went into the lion's den is also credit to her and obviously to her character. But for me, the biggest thing that she did was to be transparent and offer the public the chance to see her VADA drug test leading up to the fight, which for me is something that I think boxing desperately needs.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that she had done that, but it's great to hear that she took.
It was all over Twitter. It was all over Twitter, and even photographs of the actual certificates, just with her address marked out. But they were literally her VADA tests leading up to the Savannah Marshall fight, proving that it's negative and it's been signed off by all the officials. So everyone knew that she was one. I was waiting for Savannah Marshall to do the same, but she didn't do the same.
Well, it's so interesting that you brought that up and mentioned it, because we had just last Sunday on Drew Titan's show, the Strong House, we had Shields' trainer, John David Jackson, on. And speaking of Drew, here he is in the chat with the super chat. Salute to Drew Titan with that super chat out there. He's saying, "Cook." Appreciate that, Drew. Thanks for the support.
You, Drew. Thank you.
Yeah, we had John David Jackson on there, and I had asked the question. I'm one of those guys. I try to ask questions that will be revealing to us as an audience and as someone, visiting or having the conversation. And I asked him about if he had any concerns going into that fight. And he had said that he had heard the stories of, like when Savannah Marshall fights, when her fights are done, she doesn't take her gloves off in the ring. And if she has, it's like one, but not both. And he said that they had put a precedent down that they needed to see those gloves off her hands and things of that. And I was so happy to hear that from John David, because that means that he's on top of things the way he should be as a coach and trainer. And it was a tremendous thing to hear him speak on that, because once I kind of, breached that question a little bit, he took it from there and expressed. So if you didn't get a chance to catch that last Sunday show, Sunday night, for Drew Titan's Strong House, when we had John David Jackson in the building, he did speak on that. And what you just said about her revealing her results from her VADA testing, yeah, if somebody is on the level, they should provide that up front. What, you have nothing to hide. When someone refuses or they rebukes that or they make excuses, you have to call them into question.
Well, yeah. I mean, what my belief was that because the spotlight is on boxing in general, there's no way they could take a chance and try to cheat Clarissa Shields. But if you also remember, on the same night, there was another girl who was cheated. Well, in my opinion, okay, that no one really, but they managed to do it because it was further down the card of the contest, the fight between Michaela and the other girl. You see, she was a victim that night, but because she's further down the pecking order, no one noticed. But they daren't pull any tricks on the big number one bout between Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall. And that's why I believe that in the end, truth actually came through. And it was a tremendous fight, but at the end of the day, the best fighter won it on the day, you know, and I don't care who you are. You look at the fight, you know, Clarissa Shields won it overwhelmingly.
You know something? It's interesting you say that. We had a couple of more super chats come in, so I'm going to read those first and give my little comment for that. Salute to Raider Time out there in that super chat with his donation. He says salute. And then we have another super chat donation from the Queen Diana out there.
Beautiful. Yeah, Diana, she's lovely, honestly. She's been a guiding force for me, even if it's you know, even if it's in a spiritual way. You know, whenever she gives me a lift every time when I'm really tired and exhausted, and it's always lovely to hear from Diana. She really is genuinely gives me a lift, actually, to, you know, keep on working hard.
Absolutely, absolutely. Salute to Diana, who really supports from an earnest standpoint and position. We need more leaders out there like that who can step forward and acknowledge when people are providing the type of content that builds. And that's what I feel that we're doing. We're building out here. And we really appreciate that support. So again, salute to Diana and Raider Time and Drew Titan with their donations. Yeah, Art, I said in my post-fight show, because I did 2 post-fight shows that night. I did one for the Shields Marshall card. I did one for the Wilder Hellenius Carter along with Devin Haney later. So I did 2 post-fight shows that night. But I did state, not making a big fuss about it, but I did state that I felt like, due to use a term that Drew likes to say, the block being hot with everything going on behind the scenes in boxing, I felt like they kind of pulled back on what their plans and intents may have been.
100%.
Because 100%. You know, it's like we know some things, you know some things, but there is so much more than we know. I'm not going to say you, because you're actually over there on that side of the world, but there are a number of things that they can do and have done to angle fights. And with everything being hot, the Queen passing, they postponing and then rescheduling this fight, they may have felt like this is not the time to try to do this, and they may have pulled back on that. But as you said, I picked up on it, because if you watch my post-fight show, I felt like Michaela Mayer was robbed in that fight. Robbed of a decision where I felt she outboxed Alicia Baumgardner. Now, I'm not against Alicia Baumgardner.
No. But I mean, can I just say something? And I don't want to, I don't want to say something I shouldn't. But the other girl with that long name, I can never say it.
Well, you just say Alicia.
Right, yeah, Alicia. Right. She perhaps is more media friendly, and they could earn more money franchising her appearance than they could with Michaela. And I don't mean that to be in any way rude or anything like that. She just has that kind of media appeal, which has got nothing to do with boxing and everything to do with merchandising. That's what, I think that may be something to do with it, where she's being pushed forward more, where, it's not just ability, it's, well, how much money could we earn out of if we push Alicia forward rather than Michaela? Because, she might be able to sell more this, sell more that,
Listen, Art, I will tell you, this is why people should tune into my channel, because I don't believe in narratives. I don't believe in like driving this way or that way. I'm a straight shooter. If I can be wrong about things, I can be correct. If I'm wrong, I can accept accountability and say, hey, I was wrong. There are some people who will duck and run. But I will say this. I felt so strongly about how I did on that fight and the decision that was meted out. My Tuesday night show that followed that week, my Tuesday tussle, I did a review of the Meyer Alicia fight, and I called the fight over the air and invited anyone who had the fight in their queue or recorded or whatever to watch the fight from rounds 1 through 10 with me while I call it on the air. But I didn't show the fight on my show. I had it playing on my monitor in the background here, and I was calling the action round by round like KQKC does when he calls the fights live. And I scored the match between Alicia and Michaela. And I still had Michaela winning that fight. The only difference was I changed one round that I had it scored one way, and then the second time I scored it in favor of Baumgartner as far as that round, where I had originally gave a round to Mayer. And coming out of that was totally, on the air, and I called it because she controlled and dictated the tempo of the fight with her jab. She was in pursuit, mostly going forward. There was a point in the fight where her trainer, I think in round 4, Tony Harrison was telling Alicia to go and stand your ground and to, take more chances with, fighting. But in the other corner, in Mayer's corner, Coach Al Mitchell had told her, start mixing in those left hooks behind your punches. And when he told her to do that, she was scoring those left hooks. So that made Baumgartner start moving more again. And it changed the fight somewhat. Now, I will say this. I gave Alicia the last 2 rounds, 9 and 10. But I had Meyer winning, I think 7-3 or 6-4. I mean, 7-3, because it's a 10-round fight. But this is the funny thing about that. Every time that Alicia wanted to do something, that jab was in her face.
Yes, yeah, and do you know what I've noticed as well, Stormy B, is that people seem to forget the actual scoring system in boxing. They forget that connecting with a jab is a positive mood, and if you read the rules of boxing, a fighter that's coming forward, a fighter that is landing with shots in a positive way, okay, means that if there's any doubt in that round, that the positive fighter coming forward is the one who should be given that round. And people forget the scoring system. Just because someone hides behind the jab, we get it with Devin Haney, okay, because he's not explosive in the kind of way of other fighters, but every time he connects with a punch, it scores a point.
Right.
You know, and that's why I gave the fight in my mind to Michaela. She was coming forward, she was landing with shots, and she was working her jab, but the jab doesn't seem to be scored in the way it used to be scored.
Right. I felt like when I called that fight over the air, I felt better about my decision, because that was sincere. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it wasn't from a point of view of like, I favor this person or that person.
I didn't even know who they were. I didn't know who either of them were. I was just watching a boxing contest, literally. And so I looked at the boxing contest, I looked at it and thought, well, I think that girl, Michaela, won that just for the positivity. It was close and it could have gone either way. But to be honest with you, and I then looked at the other girl and I just thought, okay, media friendly, I don't know. It's sometimes they push people forward for certain reasons that perhaps we shouldn't get into. But, it's how much money can we earn in merchandising and putting the person forward rather than just regarding people on the boxing ability.
Yeah, I agree. Salute to Jared 011 Green out there in that super chat with his super chat donation. We appreciate you. Um, there were people who are in the chat right now who were on with me that night. Diana being one of them, and I called that fight. And I gave the explanation quite similar to what you said, Art, and we're on two different sides of the world. So I had said that there was a benefit for giving that decision to Alicia Baumgardner over Mayer, even though I don't feel she won the fight. And we've seen bad decisions like that in the past. And I had some people even say after I did the show, they were like, well, I could see it as a draw. The thing that about people talking about draws, okay, this is the thing that brings about the controversy in boxing of today. Because they cut the rounds down from 15 in championship rounds to 12, and women's fights are 10, the fact that you have even number rounds
yeah.
is a bad thing, because you can get bad decisions out of that.
Yeah.
And judges should be pressed to decide, not give even rounds. You got to pick a winner, and you got to live with who you pick. Even if a round was close, you got to pick someone. And that's what I did when I scored that fight. That's why I felt good about my decision, because no matter some of the good work that Alicia did, and she did look very good when she threw some combinations and mixed it up a little bit, but it was not enough to take complete rounds over the entire duration of the fight. And it was not enough to dictate the tempo of the fight. She never made Mayer make an adjustment, but Mayer put her on the move. And see, that's how you know when you're watching boxing who's controlling the tempo and things of that nature. So judges are no longer scoring according to the 10-point must system. They are basically giving rounds to house fighters, I call it, or who's the stronger person on the promotion and things like that, instead of scoring who's winning the rounds.
Exactly. We need to get back to the basics of the rules of boxing and allow those, and also how on earth it's absurd to have championship fights with even number rounds. The whole point of having an odd number is that it prevents absurd decisions. There should never ever be anything such as a draw. Impossible. The sheer nature of the sport of boxing, but just by the way that it operates, means that there should never ever be draws in boxing. And having odd number rounds made sure that they were very, very few and far between. Since they changed the system to even number rounds, 12 and 10, okay, just go and look at the scorecard of how many draws there have been, which then means the refight and all this carry on, the rematch in the contract, which doubles the amount of revenue that the match would have. I mean, to me, it's a corporation, it's a business, and dropping it to even numbers, which it gave a loophole and an opening where they can have lots more fights that would end in a draw, and they'd have to fight again.
Absolutely. I want to say salute to Don Shada 24 out there, also in that super chat with a donation. He says, keep the pressure on their necks. Yes, that's what we're here to do, to make sure that we draw light to this darkness that exists around this sport that we profess to love. And to talk about this, it takes me to the Canelo fight against Dimitri Bivol. If it turned out that was a closely contested fight as far as the judges' scorecards in the end, where Dimitri Bivol got the victory, but when they submitted their scorecards, that's where everything looked really questionable, Art. And I'm going to take a quick moment and see if I can pull up the scorecards for Canelo and Dimitri Bivol, because that will show exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because they said that one of the judges had the scores for the early rounds completely for Canelo, which he had not really actually won those rounds. And it's like, my goodness, to watch that, it was ridiculous. Okay, now let's see here. Let's see. I'm trying to pull this up. Let's see if I can. I'm not as good as Drew at pulling up certain things, but we'll see if I can do this. Share the screen. Let's see. Box rec.
I'll tell you what, while we're waiting, Stormy B, what do you think of the Jake Paul Anderson fight this evening? I hope that Anderson knocks him spark out. There's no place in boxing for celebrities.
Yeah, I don't really watch much of that. I don't care for Jake Paul and everything. I don't give any energy to those guys.
No, so, I understand. I know, but people like that are taking the bread out of the mouth of very hard-working professional boxers, because people, you know, that's what my objection is, and it becomes a circus freak show when you're getting people who are celebrities, who start to enter the professional boxing scene. I think it's absolutely wrong.
Yeah. So I've pulled up the scorecards.
Okay.
And the thing about the box rec scorecards, they're kind of weird how they write them out. But I don't know if you can see this very well. I put it up on the screen. Mm-hmm. But in blue is where they've scored for Canelo. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in the first 4 rounds, each of the judges gave the first 4 rounds to Canelo, which was unbelievably wrong, because someone has said that Canelo may have won like a 9th round and one of the other middle rounds. But Dimitri Bivol started the fight outboxing him straight away. So you had a couple of judges that gave him the first 4 rounds right out the gate. What that does is, you think about it, in a championship fight, 7 rounds to 4, and you win the fight. This is something that comes from the mind of Floyd Mayweather. He devised a system, kind of like Michael Jordan had a system of how to score 32 points a game. He said you hit a certain amount of shots per quarter, and you go to the free throw line, and that makes up the difference, and you figure by the end of the game you could have 32 points based on your shooting percentage and everything. So it is a science to this, and Floyd understood how to win rounds, and he also understood how to close the show. So he didn't have to knock you out, but he knew if he could put 7 rounds in the bank, you can't beat him on the judges' scorecards. Now that's Floyd Mayweather's thinking. But Canelo is not Floyd Mayweather, nor does he have Floyd Mayweather's boxing ability. So when you look at these scorecards and you see that the judges just gave him the first 4 rounds, all he has to do is win 3 more, right?
Sure.
And they haven't gone 12 yet. So if Dimitri Bivol was in the fight winning some early rounds as well, 115 to 113 is what the scorecards ended up being in favor of Dimitri Bivol. And basically, you're trying to say he only won by 2 points on all 3 judges' scorecards in a fight that he was not necessarily favored to win, but he won these rounds and secured them, especially rounds 10, 11, 12. So that's 3 rounds alone for Dimitri Bivol, who locked those rounds down. You know, most of Canelo's opponents in those later rounds, they'll fade away. Well, Dimitri came on stronger. So if you give him those 3 rounds and any mixture of the first 4 or 5, that's 5 rounds for Dimitri right away. So do you understand what I'm trying to say here, Art, about the scoring? So
yes, it's biased.
Yeah, you can actually apply this to the Alicia fight with Michaela, because that's kind of how it came out. You know what I mean? And not necessarily the person who got the victory won the fight. You know, but it's business in this sense. And for, like you said, Baumgartner, I said it, but I said it a different way. I articulated it like this. I said that Baumgartner is easy on the eyes, and he is more of a media person that they might want to put in front of the cameras and stuff like that.
Did you really say that?
Yeah, I did. You could go back and watch my show. That's why I said these things. So
I've just said really the same sort of thing.
That's why I'm admitting to that, because, and I tell people to go back and watch my work, because I don't say things just for shock effect or value or something like that. I speak it off the cuff. I have been wrong at times, but most of the time I'm kind of spot on. And this is something that, like I said, it was a thing that they could do still because of the magnitude of the night. You had Shields and Marshall competing that night.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do it to Shields. And Shields actually took that away as well by her performance, because she went for it. And that was something that was sorely missing from the Michaela Alicia fight in the championship rounds as well. Neither lady went for it to really lock the fight down and said, this is my fight tonight. If one of them had done that, I could clearly say, yes, this person. But I felt that Mayer won the fight. I don't feel Baumgartner won, because I don't think she did enough of putting rounds in the bank. But she is easy on the eyes. And when I say that, I'm not talking like a lustful man. I'm talking about she gives the appearance of she can fight, but she wasn't winning the rounds. She won some moments of exchanges and things like that, but that's not winning the fight.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the fight was close, and because she won it, you can hear an opposite argument, and you would debate it backwards and forwards. I just think it was probably bad judging. I just think the way that people look at these fights now is not actually on the rules of scoring the way that they used to be. I mean, maybe it's a modern way of doing it, but for me, someone going forward is always positive, even if they're taking shots and they're still going forward. That's always a positive in the scoring system.
Yeah. I want to say a special salute to Scrapbook Boxing, who's out there in the chat. He says, peace, Stormy B and the gentleman Art. Great to see you this morning. If you listen to the arc of your guest's explanation on topics, on questions you asked, he explains their very next move. Brilliant. We appreciate you, Scrapbook, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Out there this morning.
Also, sorry, go on. You want to read the next one?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that's my man Scrapbook. We do collaborations, man, and he says it's old school analysis. That's what he's saying. Great work. Appreciate you, Scrap.
I mean, I've just got, and I mean, this is only a personal thought of mine. It's just that there is evil in this world, and evil doesn't mind if it doesn't get the main scalp. As long as evil gets its way. So if evil was operating on that night, even though evil couldn't get the Clarissa Shields, Savannah Marshall fight, it will settle for something less. And, I mean, we have to be on the lookout for genuine evil. There's evil in this world. That's why the world's in such a terrible state. And the way evil works is evil doesn't mind small victories.
Yes, absolutely. And we have a few people in the chat that are saying, when you ask, did I really say that about Baumgartner against Michaela Mayer on that night when I recalled the fight and everything. Yes, I did. I said those same things that you said, just in a different way when it was fresh. So that lets you know that you're not the only one thinking like that and feeling the way you feel. And I don't have a problem standing on that, which is why I did that follow-up show where I called the fight, because I want people to get from me why I came up with the thought process that I did. And I felt that show kind of, I was able to stand on my merit with that. It had nothing to do with feelings or anything like that. It had everything to do with how I received and look at boxing. And I'm very consistent with that. That's the way I operate. So, but yeah, as we go forward, we're going to see, like you said, these things starting to get exposed, and some of these people are going to start going down. I just wonder what it's going to be like for those who decide to turn state's witness. Because it's going to be a lot of that, I believe, don't you?
Certainly do. As I say, the trigger point will be when the Kinahans are taken into custody. Then I think a lot of people will feel safer to actually step forward. Once they know they're in custody, they're never going to come out of custody. So, then more people will step forward. And I think there's a lot of major people who are waiting to hear the news the Kinahans are in custody. And I think then they will certainly flip the minute they hear that.
Is it true, Art, that what I've heard about Barry McGuigan and how he's had to deal with those issues from those guys, that they've really done a number on him and taken a lot of his talent and fighters away from him?
Well, him and his son, but he has to stand back and allow it to happen, because otherwise then they will shoot him dead. It's really as simple as that. It really is. You're talking about, boxing operating right at the end of the barrel of a gun. And to be honest with you, it never ends well. If you base any business, any kind of sport, and the main principle is the end of the barrel of a gun, well, it never ends well.
Yeah, man. See, and that's, if I spoke too revealing on it, I just know that the man has endured a lot, and he's had respect in the sport. But I know that at one time he was hosting a lot of talent, and that was removed from him, and it's like, wow. And see, we don't get the news over here like we should, even in the sport being covered, which is why when someone like yourself is able to be a little bit more revealing, a lot of things sound like shock to us because they don't discuss it. But that's why I look at ESPN with a crooked eye.
Oh yes, and Top Rank. Honestly, Stormy B, when this dam bursts, we are going to find out that ESPN, Top Rank have all been in bed with Daniel Kinahan to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. My only fear will be that Top Rank and ESPN will be treated like the banks when they got caught laundering money for the Mexican drug cartels. They paid a huge fine, but no executives were indicted or went to jail. And that is what I think might happen with ESPN and Top Rank. They may have to pay some kind of back taxes or a fine because of their dealings with Daniel Kinahan and the Kinahan cartel, but none of them will be arrested or indicted. And that is what, and that is a problem. I believe that if you're going to go down this rabbit hole, you've got to go all the way down. It's like when you cut a cancer out, you don't cut half of it, you go down and cut it all out.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. That's the thing, because what I was just about to say, like, I don't know how long you've been following certain things, but regarding Tyson Fury,
yeah,
he was on ESPN one night when they had a live broadcast. It was around that time when he was going to sign for the I think he was signing the contract for the rematch against Wilder or the third fight against Wilder. But he was in their studios on their live air, and Art, the way he behaved that night, he was high. He was high as a kite, and he was all over the studio. He was dancing around. He was saying all kinds of stuff. I was surprised that he didn't swear on live TV, but he was right on the cusp of it. But he behaved in such a manner, and the only thing that they were doing, the studio guys, Mark Kriegel and those guys, they sat there and they was like, "Oh, the heavyweight champion," and this and that, and they're talking about him, but they wouldn't get him to sit down and be quiet. They just kind of let him be the dick that he was on the air, and I was like, wow, they wouldn't let anybody else do that. Why are they letting this man carry on and behave? They could have gone to a commercial break and say, "Hey, we'll be back," and remove him, but they didn't do that. They just let him behave on television. So if anybody has that on record or whatever, you could go back and watch it. He really acting an ass, and he was high.
Exactly, and then we saw the exact same thing about 3 or 4 weeks ago when Tyson Fury was interviewed by Gareth A. Davis. He was clearly high on cocaine. He had the movement of the jaw, which they call the cocaine jaw. He was sweating. He was moving his nose up and down. Right, he was clearly on cocaine 3 weeks ago. And anyone who's watched the interview can come to no other conclusion that Tyson Fury was clearly under the influence of cocaine 3 weeks ago. My question, Stormy B-Man, is where is VADA? If they were testing Fury now, there's no way he passed the test. No way. No way. Yeah. But he's got a fight on December the 3rd against Derek Chisora at the Tottenham Hotspur soccer ground, where there's going to be 60,000 people. And again, it's all about the money. I mean, honestly and truthfully, I mean, where have we come to? How low have we got to where the heavyweight champion of the world is standing there clearly high on cocaine being interviewed by Gareth A. Davis? I mean, how low do we have to go before we can get off the floor? To use a boxing metaphor. I mean, honestly, it's an embarrassment. It really is. And the heavyweight champion of the world can't go to the United States of America because of his connections to a drug cartel boss. Where are the press? Where are the paparazzi? Why is this not headline news? Why has it been swept under the rug? It's been going on since April, and there's been no mention of it at all. I mean, it's absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, man, it's like, you know, as long as we can get information circulating and keep the public aware of what's going on, it could make them, it can assist them in making better judgment and assessment of when they endorse boxing, who they're endorsing, and things of that nature. And also to know where the darkness that is behind the sport, because you have to understand when someone can behave like that, they have someone behind them. There's some kind of benefit that they're enjoying.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, you could interpret it as some kind of demonic possession. And honestly, and I'm not saying this, I'm saying this, and I hope it doesn't come true, but the way Tyson Fury seems to be on a spiral downwards, I think that we may possibly see a tragic outcome to this. And I hope I'm not right. But honestly, the way that he seems to be spiraling downwards progressively, okay, you could look in, you know, through history at people who have acted in this manner, and a lot of the time it's normally ended with a tragic result. You know, that's all I would like to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, wow. Well, this is the thing, man. We always want to bring quality content, and now that I've got your email here, I can I can send you links and invite you to be on the shows that I do here. But I appreciate you coming out here with me today. You've been the true marathon man over
Oh
the
man,
past
yeah.
24 hours. Sorry.
I know, and it's not finished yet. There's a colleague who does true crime. He hasn't been on YouTube for over a month, and he's doing his first live tonight in about 6 hours, and he wants me to come on there as well. So I'm trying to go and grab a couple of hours sleep and then see if I can go on there and support him as well. But anytime you want to, Stormy B, man, it's always a pleasure to discuss these things because they overlap. Organised crime and boxing, okay, are joined at the hip. And maybe with the fall of the Kinahans, we might see that they could be absolutely separated. Because until that happens, boxing is just going to be a cesspool.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I appreciate you coming out to enjoy me today. You go ahead and get yourself a little rest. I'm gonna get ready to wrap this up, but I appreciate you coming on with me. You take care, okay?
Thank you very much, Stormy B. All the best, and I'll catch up with everyone as well later. Thank you. Goodbye.
All right. Take care. Peace. Yeah, that's the man, Art Hostage, man, coming on, helping us out, bringing some information that we don't always get from the other side of the world. You see, that's why you got to learn how to build bridges and mend fences. You don't burn things down. You never know when you might have to backtrack across a path or a trail. That's a lesson for us all. Keep that in mind. Huh? But the brother KQKC is on now. It's his time. I'm going to get off of here. I appreciate each and every one of you that came out to show the love and support for the show today. We're gonna be back later tonight for the Friday night chop session. But that's all I got for you guys. Peace and shout out to the mighty LDBC. And we up. We'll catch you guys on the next one.